Well, g'day and welcome to the channel. Today was actually going to be an in the field video using the Canon R7 and the Canon RF100-500. And I actually did that and I had an amazing time. I captured lots of photos and I'll share a lot of that footage with you today. However, if I'd shared that video, I wouldn't have been honest. I would have only cherry picked the best images from that session. And I actually want to share with you a trouble that I'm having with the R7 and the many soft shots out of focus and just poor shots that I'm taking. Let me start by saying I'm not bashing the R7. I think it's a fantastic camera. I've done a complete review on it. You can check that out. And I've taken so many wonderful images. I'm very happy with it. However, I have to be honest and I have to share my feeling after using this camera in the field for a number of months. So what are these issues that I'm talking about? There's three main ones. There's the autofocus, there's the rolling shutter, and there's the wobbling that we get between images. I've already done a video on the wobbling and the rolling shutter, which you can check out. So today I'm going to be talking about the autofocus. And I really want to concentrate on why I'm getting so many unusable shots. And I'll be upfront, I don't know exactly why that is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you the sequences of shots that I'm getting, the soft shots, and maybe come up with some theories as to why this is happening. Perhaps this is a faulty camera, I'm not sure, but we'll go through it together. So before I talk about the issues I'm having, I really want to highlight the great things about this camera and this lens and the shots that I was able to take using this combo. So the day actually started with this beautiful sunrise and I was hopeful to get some lovely morning light. However, it didn't take long before those clouds quickly swallowed the sun, giving a gloomy overcast sky. I decided to photograph the birds on my property. I actually am very fortunate to own a large bush block in the northeast of Victoria, and I'm dedicated to preserving this bush block for the birds, the mammals, and the reptiles that live here. So in winter, I'm very fortunate to get the arrival of some robins. In Australia, we have a number of very special robins, all with different colors, absolutely incredible. This morning, I was hoping to capture the scarlet robin, the hooded robin, the eastern yellow robin, and the Jackie Winter. That would be amazing if I could get all four. So let's jump out into the field and I'll explain to you exactly how I go about getting these shots on my property.
All right, so this is the big rock and we want the birds landing on here. We want the birds on the most elevated part so that the background is smooth, so it's just out of focus background. Because if I get the bird landing down low and it's just rock behind it, it doesn't look quite as good. We want that separation. So that's why this rock's so good, because we've got an elevated point. And if we can get the birds to land on there, then that's great. So I've got these little worms and I'm just going to place them on the center point, on this high point of the rock. And then hopefully we'll get a few birds landing on here to eat these worms, and then we can get some photos. You can see how they move around. The birds can see that movement. Oh, he's there. The scarlet robin's in a tree up here. He's going to fly down onto the rock and we'll be able to get some nice shots.
This is the male with the stunning red chest. It's just such a striking bird in the bush. I really like the side profile we're able to capture, showing the chest, the nice color, the wings and the eye. And I really didn't mind that out of focus grass in the background, adding a little bit of depth. So thankfully his partner, his girlfriend, also came down and she's beautiful in her own right. Quite a bit of color for a female, to be honest, which is great. And I was very happy to get her perky pose there on this nice setting, posing on top of the rock with a small bug flying nearby, added a nice little touch. So the next bird to arrive was a hooded robin. Unfortunately, it wasn't in full plumage. It didn't have the nice dark black head we usually get. It had a few specks of white, but I was still happy to see the bird. Again, a nice upright pose, just fantastic, such a great bird. And the last species that arrived in my little setup here was the Jackie Winter, and this is the most common bird on my property. They lack the color of their bright cousins, however they make up for it in personality and a bit of attitude. And I've got this beautiful tail that wags along and they're just always happy to see me and I'm happy to see them. And it posed nicely on this upright rock and we had that little bit of foliage there. So overall, a very successful morning. So in regards to the autofocus during the session, at the time, I had no issues really. The autofocus found the bird, it went on the eye, rattled away. I'm in high speed and I'm shooting and I was using the monitor, but I didn't see any issues whatsoever in the field. And as you can see, I was able to capture some really nice shots. So the next robin that I wanted to photograph was the eastern yellow robin, and I haven't actually seen that on my property. So I've jumped in my truck and I've gone for a drive about 40 minutes south of here, further south in some denser forest, and I've got my gear. And as soon as I walked in, I spotted my favorite little yellow-footed Antechinus, and it seemed to be chomping away on something, and it was on a log. So I've just focused on the Antechinus. The autofocus did find the Antechinus, and I've focused and I've just rattled away, and this is the shot we got. Now this is quite a big crop because I was a little ways back, and it sort of shows the benefit of the R7 and that extra reach that you get. We call it reach, but it's your effective focal length or your equivalent focal length. This lens is 500mm. We've got a 1.6 crop, gives us a field of view of 800mm, which just makes that subject much bigger. And that is definitely one massive advantage of this camera, and I love that. So I actually did have a bit of trouble finding birds during the session, and that happens. You can wander around and just not see anything. And so I wandered around for about an hour, didn't see really any birds whatsoever. I finally saw the eastern yellow robin come up off the ground, perch. I did take a shot, but as you can see, we're just way too far away, and it was a little bit distracting, and I wanted to improve on that. So I knew I had to get closer to that bird. As I'm approaching the eastern yellow robin, it's flown off, but then I've glimpsed another flash of yellow, and I thought, oh, what could that be? And I've looked through the camera, and to my delight, it was a crested shrike tit. These are wonderful bush birds that we get in Australia. I haven't photographed them all that much, and we can see that it's actually caught itself a little grub that it's pulled off the back of one of these leaves, and I was stoked to capture that. Happy to see the bird and happy to get that photo. Once I'd photographed the shrike tit, I was just beaming. I was so happy, I was just in my absolute element. And often what happens, this is what we dream of as wildlife photographers, is sometimes an opportunity just presents itself. So I'm standing there and then I spot another little yellow-footed Antechinus, and it's wiggling its way up this tree, and it's a little bit high, and I'm thinking, oh, it's a bit high to get a shot. So I'm tracking it, I'm watching it, it goes behind some leaves and I miss it, and there's like this opening in the eucalypt. So there's a branch and there's leaves either side, and the Antechinus just magically stops right in the middle, looks at me, and I'm there with the camera, and I'm going, oh, this is incredible. And I autofocus and hold down the shutter, rattle off some shots, and it's probably one of my favorite shots of that species to date. I absolutely love this shot. I love the habitat with the surrounding the subject. I love the eye contact. It's just staring right into us. I absolutely like the inclusion of the tail, the little feet. It's kind of got everything that I'm after. So I was absolutely over the moon to capture this, and it goes to show you just have to be in the right place at the right time. You can plan these things, but often the great shots just happen in front of you, and I was very happy to capture that. So after the Antechinus, I thought, oh, I can't get much better than that. But I knew I wanted to capture these eastern yellow robins, and there were about 2 or 3 birds that I had spotted feeding around. Now my experience tells me that these birds are quite inquisitive. They're very curious little birds, and often if you just disturb the ground, like they may come over to see what's going on and see if there's any bugs in that dirt. So that's exactly what I did. I sort of found a perch that I thought might look nice for the birds on top of, and I had those mealworms with me. I've thrown the mealworms on the dirt, then I've gone back and I've set up and I've just waited. And sure enough, the eastern yellow robins have come, they've staged, so they start high and they've come down, just looking down. And whilst the bird was perched, looking down to grab the worm, it's looked back at me. I've managed to rattle off some shots. I want you to let me know what you think of it. I've been creative with this, so I sort of made it black and white and then just revealed the color of the bird, the yellow. And I like how the perch frames the bird. I like that pose. For me, I'm very happy with this shot. I want that bird on a better perch. So I've had a look around on the ground and there was actually a nicer, smaller perch. So I've simply just put that right next to the clearing, hoping that the robin would land on this perch before it dropped down. Went and waited and just got lucky, I guess, and the robin has landed exactly where I wanted it, and we've rattled off a heap of shots. This is the photo. I like the inclusion of a little bit of that grass habitat in behind just to give it a bit of depth. It is just a standard side profile, but we've got the beautiful bird. It's nice and sharp. There's nothing too distracting. Overall, a very successful shot. And so I took loads of shots of that bird, and they were landing nearby. I took this one last shot. I just want to showcase this because the detail in this photo is just fantastic, and I'm very happy with the image quality, very happy with the shots that I was able to get. So that was my morning. Those were the shots. So I got home all excited. I've taken the memory card out of the camera. I've put it into the computer. I start reviewing the images and I start to get confused and I'm thinking, why are so many of these shots out of focus? There seems to be some sort of focus shifting. There's a lot of soft shots here which shouldn't be soft, and I'll start to get pretty confused. I do remember when I reviewed the R7, and I've used it previously, that it was a bit inconsistent, but I can't remember it being quite this bad. Now I want to show you what I'm talking about so you can see for yourself. So the first bird was that scarlet robin, and you can see that it starts sharp, but in a burst of shots from one shot to the next, it just shifts focus. It goes soft in the middle of the burst, then takes a few soft shots, then works its way back into focus and it becomes sharp. So I'm getting this sharp, sharp, soft, soft, sharp, soft, sharp, sharp, soft phenomenon going on, similar to what I got on that Sigma lens months ago. And we need to talk about why is an image soft. There's a few reasons why your images are soft. The first one is just motion blur. That is the subject's moving, so your shutter speed's too low, which introduces motion blur, or I'm moving. And I know I move a lot, so I accept there's going to be some motion blur on my part. But I was on a stable platform and I am shooting at a high burst, so I wouldn't suspect there would be that much variance between the shots. One way to figure out whether it's motion blur or focus shifting is if it's motion blur, the whole image should be blurry. There shouldn't be any part of it in focus. If it's focus shifting, our subject is soft, but somewhere either behind or somewhere in front is in focus. So why don't we have a look at that? Now with this eastern yellow robin, you can see that the bird is in focus. And you might not be aware, but you can download a plugin, I'll put a link in the description, which will show you where your focus point was at the time you took the photo. So when we check this eastern yellow robin, yep, the focus point is on the eye, the bird is sharp, happy days. The very next shot in that sequence, we can see that the bird is now soft, the perch is now in focus, but the autofocus point is on the bird. Like, how does that happen? How can the autofocus be on the subject, but the actual focus be behind the bird? And then the next shot, it rectifies itself and it fixes itself. So at no point did I see in the viewfinder or remember that focus point going on to the perch and then back to the bird. It seemed to stay on that bird the entire time, but the actual photo is shifting focus, which is very confusing. And I'm not sure exactly why that is. And this happened a number of times. Here's another really good example. I had some eastern rosellas, not a great photo because of the bright background, but just to demonstrate, we can see that the birds are in focus. We've got an autofocus point around the head of the bird. And then the next shot, it's moved quite a long way. It's gone all the way to that background. And you can see how those leaves are now in focus and the subject's out of focus. But again, the focus point is on the eye of the rosella. And then it comes back. And this is happening in a split second. Like I'm shooting at 30 frames per second. One shot is sharp. The next shot, which is a split second later, the focus has jumped back. Let me know in the comments if you've experienced this or why this is happening. And now the next issue might be my shutter speed being too low. 1/400th, 1/500th might be a little bit slow. So I actually went out yesterday with some light. We went to 1/2000th of a second. I think it was ISO 800 or 400. And that's very high shutter speed. So motion blur shouldn't be an issue. I've had a Jackie Winter land on the perch. Again, I'm on a monopod. This time I had no monitor. This time I went for electronic first curtain, 15 frames per second, and I've rattled off some shots. And again, this time though, you can see that it was just struggling to land critically sharp shots. They were just slightly out of focus, slightly moving, and it's just very frustrating as to why this camera can't just land on the subject and keep it sharp. So to be honest, I'm at a real loss as to what's going on. So I don't think it's a shutter speed issue. What I think is the issue and what my gut feeling is that this sensor in the R7 is quite slow, yet the autofocus algorithms are extremely fast and very demanding. This lens is a very good quality lens, which is obviously has a great autofocus motor in it. So I just don't think that this body can potentially keep up with this lens at those high frame rates. It's just struggling to work for some reason. That's my gut feeling, because it should be sharp and it shouldn't be doing that. Maybe it's this body, maybe it's me, I really don't know. And that's why I'm sharing this video, because I want to hear from you. Have you had any of these focus shifting issues with your R7? Are you getting any abnormalities in your images, or is it just me? Are you using some sort of different settings? I tried the different autofocus modes, the different cases. I changed the sensitivity, the stickiness of it. I shot an electronic first curtain, I shot an electronic mode, I shot at 30 frames per second, 15 frames per second. and just about every time that I'm using this combo, I'm getting those issues. Clearly, I probably need to do a lot more testing with different lenses, etc. But it's just something I wanted to share with you. Now, of interest, I do happen to own the Sony A7 Mark IV and the 200-600. This is obviously a full frame body compared to that APS-C, but I happen to shoot this exact kit in the same spot that I shot this one with those robins. Now, this body is roughly the same speed sensor as this, even though it's full frame. Only shoots in 10 frames per second though, and we've obviously got this beautiful lens. So very same situation. I think I was on a monopod or a tripod. The robins have landed and I'm just holding down the autofocus and shooting in 10 frames per second. And you can see with this female scarlet robin, every shot is sharp pretty much. There's none of this focus shifting going on as you would expect from this expensive gear. So I'm not having the issues on the Sony. And to be fair, I'm not really seeing these issues on the R5 or the R6 Mark II. It only seems to be the APS-C Canon bodies that I've had trouble with. So the R7, the R10, I've had similar issues with this focus jumping around and being inconsistent. Again, I don't want to be too critical of this camera because I know many of you have it and you're taking wonderful shots. So it doesn't seem to be impacting everyone. Maybe it is just a dodgy camera and I need to send it back to Canon. Let me know what your thoughts are. But as I mentioned, I took so many good shots with this combo, and for its price, it performs extremely well. It's just, I guess I'm just disappointed. I'm just struggling personally with using this body just due to all those soft shots that I appear to be getting. And I know some of you probably have experienced similar things with different bodies before. Overall, I just thought this would be an interesting topic and worth sharing with you. So if you enjoyed the video, obviously give it that thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more of these videos. Thanks to all my brand new members and all the existing members. If you're not aware, for less than the price of a coffee per month, you can join the channel, support me. You get access to the current calendar. The year's running out, but we've still got a number of good months left. You can download that for free, and I really do appreciate all the support. So until the next video, take care, happy birding. We'll see you later.